Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the final 3 episodes of Ironheart. And the first of those episodes was called Bad Magic. And as it starts, at a memorial for John, who died at the end of the previous episode, Parker, aka Hood, experiences a flashback in which he and John rob a house, and Hood kills a security guard before telling the crew they need to focus on their next job, and telling Riri he has plans for her. Later, Riri examines the piece of Parker's hood that she obtained during the last job under a microscope, but can't determine the source of its energy before seeing it disappear and reappear inexplicably. Natalie suggests that Riri contact Shuri in Wakanda, which Riri says she thinks is a bad idea, before she goes to Ezekiel's when Natalie is unable to reach him, only to learn he's been arrested because the cops found his tech at the site of Parker's last job. She then visits him in lockup, and it doesn't go well as he's quite upset with her. When she next sees Parker, he questions her relationship with Ezekiel and expresses disappointment with her having gone to Ezekiel versus him for tech help. Later, Riri gives her mom a watch and tells her never to take it off before going to see Xavier to give him one and to ask whether he thinks she's a good person. And he says she's like Spock in that she's stoic yet deeply emotional. Later, Riri's mom gets abruptly encased in an electric shield when her watch hears gunshots on TV, much to her displeasure, after which Riri's mom takes Riri to an herbalist-type magic shop for help with her well-being, and gets taken to a parallel realm by her mom's friend's daughter, both of whom have ties to Kamar-Taj, and who examine the hood piece, which they determine is very old, unstable, and from another very dangerous realm, at which point they tell Riri the hood is influencing Parker, as well as that it needs to be destroyed. This leads she and her mom to argue about what Riri is involved in, before she takes off in her suit to visit Ezekiel's tech silo, where she tries unsuccessfully to destroy the hood piece. Meanwhile, Parker visits Ezekiel in lockup to recruit him. Flying back home, Riri has a panic attack while Ezekiel is let out of his cell remotely to find Parker's crew loading his things into a truck at the prison. Natalie goes to get Xavier and flies him to Riri, who's still in the midst of a panic attack, before revealing herself to him, which repulses him, causing he and Riri to argue, at which point he returns Riri's watch to her. Parker's crew builds something with which to upgrade Ezekiel, whom they've broken out of prison, and Parker orders them to bring him Riri's head, and that's where the episode ended. The next episode was called Karma is a Glitch. At the beginning, Slug captures Natalie and Riri's suit. Riri meets with Zelma from the magic shop, who believes that the hood came from Dormammu, whose specific motives are unknown, though we know that he's a primordial interdimensional entity and the ruler of the Dark Dimension, who wields apocalyptic levels of supernatural power and who has sought in the past to absorb all other universes into his dark dimension and to turn his victims into mindless ones. The Hood's crew arrive to kill Riri, and she fends some of them off very creatively after sending Zelma away. While battling Clown, also creatively as well as explosively, Riri tells her that Parker had Rampage killed before Natalie helps Riri escape with the suit. But the two argue, and bitter over Riri considering deleting her, Natalie turns herself off. Riri's then attacked by Ezekiel, aka Zeke, now enhanced with bionic implants that emit electricity. He dismantles Riri's suit and is about to kill her, but changes his mind and spares her, advising her to leave Chicago instead. Riri asks her mother for help, but Ronnie confronts her for her obsession with her suit. Riri admits that she made the suit because she knows it could have helped save Natalie and Gary when they were killed if it had existed at the time. Ronnie and a returning Natalie decide to help Riri build a new suit in Gary's garage, using the old car he and Riri were working on before he died, where Natalie somehow shows Riri memories of working and dancing with her dad when she was 8, during which Riri was hit on the head by a falling wrench, which didn't hurt her, earning her the nickname Ironhead. Zeke and Clown lie to Parker about Riri's death, mainly by saying that she experienced one, and Zeke rejects Parker's proposal to join the crew full-time. Clown then helps the crew discover the fabricated autopsy of Rampage, and they accuse Parker of having him killed. Parker fires all of them in anger, which causes the Hood's corruption to increase through his body, through blackened veins. Riri, Ronnie, Natalie, and Xavier help make the new suit, while Zelma helps empower it with magic, which Riri realizes she needs in order to overcome Parker's powers. Parker then forces Zeke to help him break into the home of his father, Arthur, who is the CEO of Artworks and who has a controlling interest in all the companies Parker and the crew had robbed. Arthur refuses to sign his contracts as Parker confronts him for abandoning him as a child before forcing him to actually sign them. We then learn that it turns out that Zelma's magical help comes at the cost of Natalie being deleted, and that's where the second episode ended. The third and final episode was called The Past is the Past, and as it starts, as seen in a prior flashback as well as the current one, Parker previously attempted to rob his father's mansion with John before escaping and splitting up, whereupon Parker met a hooded figure. The man assures Parker that he can help him achieve his dreams of power, respect, and wealth for himself, and Parker accepts his deal and becomes the Hood. In the present, Parker stands as the head of the family's business and mansion, although he only has a controlled Zeke as a companion. Unable to recreate Natalie, Riri resists her family and friends' advice and goes to see Parker to find answers through his hood. Feeling empty, Parker meets up with the stranger and accuses him of not fulfilling his end of the deal, which the man says isn't true as he had given Parker everything that he needed. Riri arrives at the old gang headquarters and battles a reluctant Zeke, who allows her to hit him in the crotch, where the pain will cause him to reset and be free of Parker's control. Riri then confronts Parker and demands his hood, so he calls her a thief who wants power, but she explains that he's wrong because what it would cost her is not worth it. The two battle, with Parker displaying demonic strength, but Riri tricks him with a hologram before managing to take the hood, leaving Parker in a pained state. As she's about to leave, Riri meets the stranger. The man introduces himself as Mephisto, an extremely powerful immortal demonic entity in Marvel Comics based on Mephistopheles, a demon character from the Faust legend, possessing abilities that are used by manipulating the forces of magic. Having observed her previously, Mephisto is able to manipulate Riri by exploiting her grief towards Natalie, and she agrees to his deal as long as he does not go after her loved ones. Back at her garage, Riri sees Natalie and soon realizes that she isn't a reconstituted AI, but the actual Natalie brought back to life, and hugs her, displaying the marks of Mephisto crawling through her skin. In a post-credit scene, Parker asks Zelma for Supreme-like help, and she seems willing to consider giving it to him. That's where the episode and the miniseries ended. So I talked last week about how it was so unfortunate that this show was getting so much hate well before it ever came out, and still is, from a certain crowd that, again, just doesn't like black people or women or black women on the screen. And I hate to throw around an accusation like that, but it's just been proven to me over and over again that this is the problem they have. The problem is not with the story, as they keep saying it is. Sometimes when they have these complaints, the stories are not fantastic, but they are at least good, and they never give them even that much credit. This time, it's even worse that they're doing this because Ironheart isn't just good. It's very good. It really is. I mean, I don't totally get why they chose to mix a magical villain with an iron suit hero, because it doesn't seem like a natural, where you would go with that. You would think Doctor Strange would be the hero for this villain, or, in the comics, it was Silver Surfer, where again, there's mystical powers involved or magic or, supernatural stuff. A down-to-earth tech-only hero, well, she becomes a tech plus magic hero, but an initially tech-only hero doesn't seem where, to be the story where you would put the demonic villain, but I think in the end it worked. And, in the comics, Mephisto was often a foil for Spider-Man, who, again, is not a magic character. So the reservations that I had about it at the end of the first 3 episodes disappeared when I saw where they went with it, and I think they really did a good job. And Sacha Baron Cohen as Mephisto was just awesome. He was really, really good. Ultimately, this is a story about a young person who is deeply traumatized by the loss of her father and her best friend, who is trying to achieve goals that are very important to her, who winds up in a sort of situation with a bad crowd, but who then takes action to combat the evil that she discovers and to protect her friends and family and the city. And that's a very similar story in my mind to the story of Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And you could look at that and say, well, it's derivative and it's unoriginal and therefore bad. But I disagree. I think, there's room for more than one story about that kind of thing in the world and in the Marvel universe. And I think this story is really, really good because in the telling of this story about this character, they bring in the fact that she's very connected to her family and very connected to her friends, and that she struggles with self-doubt and continued setbacks. And I just thought that it was really great watching this story unfold. I thought the acting was spectacular on the part of the lead actress and the actress playing Natalie. The action sequences were really well done, I thought, the fight scenes. And I thought that the whole thing just had a lot of heart. Not everything has to be Endgame, to be good. I thought this was just a really excellent show. And the way they left it, I found to be exciting because I want to see more of this character. I don't know if they're going to do a season two because they labeled this 6 episode run as a mini series, meaning not season one of possible multiple seasons. So I don't know if there's going to be more episodic Ironheart, but I would love to see more with the character. Maybe a movie that goes right to streaming, or maybe weaving the character into other stories. And speaking of weaving, they also wove in the Zeke character, which I thought was a great sort of subplot for the show. You've got this guy who's struggling with a legacy and is trying initially to be a good guy, but then finds himself kind of pissed off and wanting to sort of get recompense from Riri. And he refrains from killing her and then even lets her sort of defeat him so that she can take care of the Hood. But in that, he says, we're not done at the same time. So I just thought that was well done. And I thought that actor did great in the part. So I really just thought it was a great show. And I would love to see more with the character because I want to see now how Riri deals with the fallout of her having made a deal with Mephisto and the fact that she now has that crawly, yucky thing in her skin or in her body. And I want to see whether or not Zelma is going to help Parker and what her rationale for that would be. Does she know who he is? Is she going to find out who he is? Where's that going to go? I think they did a great job with this 6 episode story that had a beginning, middle, and end, but I think they also left it open for the story to continue, which I think is excellent, and I want to see it continue. I just really, really enjoyed this show. And like I said before, it's not because I'm some Marvel fanboy or Disney fanboy or because I'm super woke or whatever. I can recognize when Disney Marvel, or for that matter, Disney Star Wars, puts out something bad. I thought Secret Invasion was awful. Just awful. And I think other shows that they've put out, while I enjoyed them, were not as good as this particular one. I liked She-Hulk quite a bit, but honestly, it wasn't as good as this. I liked, on the Star Wars side, Skeleton Crew, but it wasn't as good a show as this is. So, I don't know what else to tell you. It just really is a quality show. And, to the point where it's even better than other shows that I liked. So it's just not at all true that the show is horrible. It's not at all true that the show is bad. I mean, were there things about it where that while I was watching, I was going, okay, that's kind of strange that, they're going to build an iron suit out of a car and, they're going to use car parts to put in a sophisticated computer control system with a helmet display. And how are they going to do that from car parts? It seems like it would need more sophisticated, like micro parts and whatnot, and wiring and chips and things that you wouldn't necessarily find in a car. So it was a little strange that they were doing stuff like that. But that's not anything that takes anything whatsoever away from how well written the characters are and how well crafted the story was. So you overlook it. Those are the things you pick on when the show is bad in other ways, and it's just one more thing on the list of awful. But it wasn't a thing here because the rest of the show is just so well done and so good. But that's really it. I like the show, and anybody who tells you it's bad is just an idiot or a liar. And I'm looking forward to seeing the character again and seeing the continuation of the story that they told in these 6 episodes. But I'm going to get out of here for now. I'll be back with another video soon. As always, I wish you peace and long life.